If you're a weightlifter, you know how important your hips are to your lifting. So why aren't you doing more hip work? Well, sometimes it's hard to do it on your own, and that's why follow-along routines are great. You just follow along and do it. And that's what I'm providing you with here. This is a hip mobility routine to improve your lifting, to reduce joint pain, and to help with speeding up your recovery. And to show you that even bodybuilders can do it, I've got Austin Curran here, who is a former IFBB Physique Pro, and we're gonna be going through the workout together. Be sure to subscribe. We've got more of these videos in this series coming out. Okay, so I'm gonna take you through a little sequence here for your hips. We're gonna do 3 poses. We're gonna start with a low lunge. We're gonna go into a warrior 1, and then we're gonna do horse pose. And this is gonna work on a lot of the big common areas that weightlifters need in their hips. And yeah, so let's start off with that low lunge. So, and I'm just gonna use the tall blocks just because I kind of wanna see what will help, what will make it easier for you. So, and then knee down on the ground. And also we're gonna use the knee pad just to, you know, if you are as big as Austin is, then, you know, getting your knee directly on the floor might not feel that great. So yeah, so this is great because a lot of guys, you know, if you lift weights, you probably do some variation of split squats, but as far as actually just holding it and staying there for a while, not as much. So we're just gonna work on building strength in this kind of end range of the lunge position. So I like starting off just kind of easy intensity, just kind of getting the lay of the land, so to speak. We're just, okay, where's my body? Where is my body weight? Am I pushing down through my feet? Which muscles am I feeling working in my hips? Right, you're probably feeling a stretch through your right hip flexors as we're here. In terms of what you can do with the back leg, so sometimes we can tuck the toes if that feels good. You can also, if you untuck your toes and you push your foot into the ground, you'll feel a bit more active. You'll feel a bit more stretching through the hip flexors. If you spend a lot of time in shoes or if you have an office job, then I would actually recommend tucking the toes just because you probably have some pretty poor toe mobility. So yeah, this is our base for low lunge, and there's so many poses that come from a low lunge. So like if you don't have to do this, but if you took your back knee up, you'd be in a high lunge. You know, and if you lean forward a little bit, now we're in a runner's lunge. If you leaned back a little bit, we're in that high lunge position, but this all kind of starts from this low lunge here. So I would say here, stay for a minimum of 45 seconds. If you want to do it longer, that's great. When we start to get into those really long holds where we're getting like 60, 90, 120 seconds, that's when the flexibility benefits really start to increase. So, but if you just want to do 30 seconds, just kind of get your body prepped, that also works just fine. All right, let's go ahead and switch sides. So same thing, the other side. Yeah, and I appreciate that you added a flow to that. Thank you. That was one of the most important parts of yoga, is making it look pretty, as we all know. So yeah, just like lifting. You don't realize that sometimes. You don't realize that like lifting is like a move, like a body art movement, until you see if someone's really good at that and you're like, oh, that looks really smooth.
Yeah, I think there's an art and a science to every physical expression.
Yeah, totally. All right, so low lunge. So I kind of give you the basics on the last one. This next side, I'm going to add a little bit more in. So I like to add some sort of isometrics to each pose. I find it just makes it a bit more effective. It also helps take it from a passive stretch into more functional strength and functional range of motion. So I'm gonna have you push down through your left foot. So we're really pushing that, push down through your right foot. So you're really starting that right glute to start to engage, feeling that hip active, probably feeling the quadriceps start to work. Maybe the muscles start to shake a little bit. Back foot, toes are tucked. Yep, just like you're doing. So feeling the toes stretching. If you've got tight ankles, tight feet, might be a little uncomfortable, might feel a bit crampy after some time, but we're working on it. Now with the hips, I want you to squeeze the legs toward one another. So you're gonna pretend like this mat is sliding apart in opposite directions, and you have to squeeze your legs together to prevent that from happening. As you do that, right, the adductors are really firing now. So the adductors are important. Those are gonna help you support your knees. It's also helping to support your lower back. So this is a good way to get those muscles firing, but also to work on the range of motion there, so we can get deeper into squats with less pain or less discomfort. Yeah, so legs are squeezing toward one another. We're driving down through that front foot. The back toes are tucked.
And this is a basic variation with the hands relaxing on the block. But if you wanted to make this more active, you could bring your hands up off the block, and you can bring your arms maybe into arms overhead, or tighter shoulders. Right, it helps to get the arms level with the elbows level with the shoulders. And then one thing that tends to happen here is a lot of guys tend to just arch the back. So I want you to think about kind of reaching the tailbone down. You're getting stiff.
Bring this back a little closer.
Cool. All right. So one thing that tends to happen here is a lot of guys tend to arch the lower back, and that means they're not using the hips and the core as much. They're not getting as good of a stretch of the hip flexors as they could. So it helps think about kind of lengthening that lower spine, reaching the tailbone down, kind of pulling the belly button toward the lower back. That's going to create a lot more feeling of strength in this pose, but also better stretching through the hips.
Yeah.
Cool.
Got it.
Yeah. All right. Austin's ready for the next pose.
Yeah.
Hey guys, if you like this video and you want to get into yoga, I've got a free 30-day challenge that you can do right here for free on YouTube. The link for that is in the description below. Just check that out when you're finished. Enjoy the rest of the video.
All right.
How you feeling? You okay? Just stiffen it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just, yeah, muscles are a little sore. So,
Okay.
yeah, I'm good.
Cool. All right. So next pose we're going to get into is called a Warrior One. And this is basically a lunge with your back foot turned out 45 degrees. So it does actually help to use blocks. So I'm going to keep the blocks here anyways. So hands on the block, you're going to have whichever leg comes forward. Yep, left leg comes forward. And then your back foot's going to turn out and point out at 45 degrees. Yep, and bring it up a little bit closer than you normally would for a lunge. Yep, so we're getting that foot all the way on the ground, and then we want to be active in the arch of the foot. So if I look at the arch of his foot here, I'm trying to get a little bit of space between the arch of the foot and the ground. So it's going to feel like you're pushing into the outer edge of the back foot a little bit, and that's going to help with opening up the ankle. So you should feel your calf start to open up a little bit more, maybe even just right above the heel, just kind of feeling all that fascia start to open up. Austin's doing a great job here already with the front leg. So knee is over the ankle and the front foot. If you notice that knee is going really far past the front foot, then you can probably bring your feet a little bit further apart. But you're doing a great job. Also, Austin's doing a really good job here of keeping the pelvis and the spine pretty neutral, right? He's not letting his butt poke out way behind him. So if you were to do that, what would that look like? So yeah, butt can poke out at the side, or you're really extending lumbar spine. Yeah, and you're feeling that a lot of stiffness through the lower back. So you want to try and have a neutral spine. He's doing a really good job of that there. That's going to allow him to open up through the hips. And even though he's just holding this pose, and this is like not super deep, right? He's probably pretty challenged. Just
Yeah, they're active. It's an active contraction. It doesn't feel passive. It feels very active.
yeah,
Yeah, but from the arch of my foot all the way up through my hip flexor adductor.
yeah.
Kind of even the rotational aspect of my spinal erectors and everything like that. It's kind of challenging, all that stuff.
Yeah, and there is that nice rotation aspect. So one way I like to emphasize that, kind of punch your right arm up and almost like you're going to reach to the left a little bit. So we're creating this nice long line from the knee up through the shoulder here. And then lift the left arm up too. Yep. And let's go goalpost arms once again. Good. And then think about kind of really opening up through the chest there. And think about lifting the ribs up away from the hips. Yep. Good. And we're just maintaining this position, just working on strength, working on end range, trying to keep the hips neutral, the core tight as we're doing this. Yeah, nice job. Okay, go ahead and relax. Woo!
I'll probably be sore from this.
We're going to be sore. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. All right, so other side, it's doing the same thing. Back foot's pointing out 45 degrees. And if you were to look at your feet, two parallel lines where your feet are positioned, you want to make sure that the back foot is just a little bit to the outside. So you don't want to have them lined up with one another. The back foot is a little bit to the outside. You're doing a great job of that. And then once again, that back leg is straight. We're kind of pushing into the outer edge of the back foot and the heel. So we're not allowing the ankle to kind of collapse in. We're working on that ankle mobility.
Do you want me to engage in my glutes here, like my glute medius, my side of the upper glute?
Yes, the glute engagement can help.
Kind of bring that foot out.
Yeah. Yeah. So getting the glutes engaged, definitely. And then also, kind of like we did with the lunge at the beginning, adding in that isometric squeezing legs toward one another. So getting the adductors engaged, getting the inner thighs engaged. And I find that, and this is a general thing, but if you engage more muscle, it does help with working deeper into the range of motion. So getting more active there. And I'm looking at Austin's thigh, but there's some shaking going on here, which is just to say, it's putting yourself in an isometric position that you're not used to. Even if you're really strong, it challenges your muscles in different ways. So it's cool to see that.
Yeah, between yoga and bar classes throughout the years, it's the better you're able to even connect, the better mind-muscle connection you have as a weightlifter, the harder and deeper you can get into these positions and locate what that is. And I think that just increases your ability to do yoga or weightlifting or vice versa, and kind of make the most of both worlds there.
Yeah, they'll help each other. All right, let's go ahead and give yourself a break.
All right, good.
Yeah, that was a long time. Cool. All right, so we've got one more pose we're going to go through. This one is going to, in some ways, kind of build on what we've been doing. This is a horse pose, and this is one that I would say is probably a little more intermediate in terms of intensity, but I really like this because you get to use your body weight to go deeper into it. So especially for a tighter guy, if you're doing horse pose and you go into a yoga studio, they're probably going to say, turn your feet out all the way. And I can't even do that. Like there's no way. So for you, I'm going to have you kind of align your feet with these 45-degree angles. So one foot's going to be kind of like this, and the other one's going to be matching that one. Yep. And then we'll turn sideways for me. So face the front camera. Yes. Get the full frontal shot.
Full frontal shot.
Yeah. And then so what we want to do here is be mindful of the knees tracking over the middle toes. So don't allow the knees to cave in. And as you sink down, so this is, if you were doing this with weight, we definitely wouldn't want to do a squat with your toes turned out like that.
Ooh.
Oh, we felt some good stuff happening.
A little cramp there.
Little cramp. So, and the way that we modify that, so you can bring your feet a little bit closer together. You also don't have to turn your feet out as much. So you can choose, so depending on flexibility here, right? Super flexible, my feet are going to face really far out. Less flexible, my feet are going to face more forward. So you can choose anywhere between feet facing slightly out and feet facing all the way out, just depending on where you want to go with that.
I may or may not be able to get back in that.
All right. We'll see what happens. Bring in the stunt double if need be.
Yeah, I don't know if I will.
No?
I mean, I'll try that.
Okay.
Can do that for now.
Cool.
Yeah, it's my
All right.
tolerable limit.
All right, so we made it back in here. Good. So, and this is great because, this is a good example of you don't have to go super deep into it for it to work, right? I can see from here that Austin's muscles are shaking, right? We've got a lot of good opening up through the inner thighs. Glutes are really working here. The glutes are what's going to help you prevent the knees from caving in. And it's also actively opening up the inner thighs. We also want to try and kind of get the butt under the body. We're not trying to let it poke out behind you. So you're almost leaning back with the shoulders and engaging the glutes to reach the tailbone down. Yeah, good. Go ahead and take a little break. Cool. I'm going to have you turn sideways so now we can see that from the side.
One thing in my years of going to yoga, though, I would say for those watching, especially those weightlifters watching, people that are a little bit less flexible or maybe insecure about their ability to move here, do not be afraid. That's one thing that my wife taught me early on was if you have to regress here, regress. There's nothing you have to do here other than try and do your best to mimic what we're doing.
Yeah.
But some poses I'm doing mainly regressions on everything. Yeah. I'm not going quite as deep, and that's where I need to be.
Yeah.
And that helps me out. And also doesn't leave me sore for 2 weeks.
Right.
Right. So it allows me to come more consistently and actually improve that range rather than just surviving the workout. I can more or less thrive within the workout. So
Yeah. So taking the depth down in yoga is to reducing the weight in resistance training, right? So if I'm brand new to weight training, I'm not going to go load up 225 and start bench pressing as much as I can, right? No. Same thing with yoga, right? You're not going to look at the instructor and be like, oh, I'll just do what he's doing. No, you have to choose a depth that's much more manageable.
There's some positions I can't even get in.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's okay.
No, same here.
I just go baby and, meditate a bit.
Yeah, perfect. All right, so I want to do that sideways because I want to highlight your pelvis as you're doing it. So once again, toes facing out just as much as you can. Yep, and you just saw him do it, but he kind of squeezed his butt and reached the tailbone down. And then you're gonna, yep, exactly that. So it's gonna feel like when you do it correctly, just like he did just now, he kind of fell backwards a little bit, right? So it's almost like you're challenging yourself to lean backward to the point that you feel like you might fall over. Yep, so he's got a nice long lumbar spine here, right? It's not arched. The butt's kind of under the body. He's going to do his best to lean the shoulders back so that the shoulders are almost on top of the hips, and then really squeezing the knees out away from one another, glutes engaging in order to do that, and then a ton of opening through the inner thighs happening here. And then to make this a little bit easier, you can also add some movement, right? So when it starts to get really hard in that static position, changing it to a more dynamic movement where you can move from side to side, right? And that's also helping you ease a little bit deeper into it. Cool.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm be sore from that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good job. All right, so we just went through 3 poses here. We did a low lunge, we did a warrior 1, and we did a horse pose. What did you notice?
One asymmetry between sides, which is normal.
Yeah.
You know, we see that in weightlifting a lot as well. And I think there's depending on kind of who you follow or who you listen to, you can get different information there, but understand that asymmetries happen. Asymmetries are normal. And yoga typically just exposes those compensations that you're making elsewhere. And so when I speak about finding end ranges and accessing new range and then learning how to load it, you know, I think with this deep lunge, the first movement, that's going to mimic that split squat, right? So when I'm in that position, that's going to allow me to really drive that knee down, get a high stimulus or high stress, high amount of tension, not only in this front leg, but the back leg, the rec fin, the quad muscle that crosses the hip and the knee. So that's going to allow me, as I get better here and more comfortable, then I can access that range. And then as I get into my workout, I'm able to control, not only get to that range, but really control that range and drive through that split squat. So that's kind of where you see everything come together.
Yeah. So when you have more controlled range of motion, does that lead to more muscle?
It's going to lead to more, tension, likely on the intended tissue that you're trying to train, right? So when you go through a certain range of motion, right? So just like you were saying, as I'm tucking in that pelvis, one thing, if I let everything go, that's less of a stimulus on my rec fin, on my hip flexor, right? That's less of a stimulus. But as soon as I tuck, you can see my back leg my rec fin is firing. I'm not doing that on purpose, right? So that is the difference between here, where I'm kind of in a passive range, versus an active range that I can control with a lot of tension and a high amount of output, which that high amount of output had enough volume of work across your session, across your program, across the years. That's what's going to lead to muscle growth long term.
Cool.
Great job on that workout, guys. Hopefully you're feeling better, feeling more mobile in your hips, and you're noticing the effects of this workout. Again, make sure you do this on a regular basis for best results. So save this routine, add it to your favorites, bookmark it, whatever you want to do to make sure you do it more often. Big shout out to Austin Curran for being part of this. You can check out his links and his channels in the description below. And if you want more of this, be sure to subscribe. We put out a new video every week. Thanks, guys, for watching. Oh, if you want to check out the next video in this series, go ahead and click above my shoulder right here, and we'll keep on working yoga for weightlifters.